Welcome back to the Relativity Series, produced by LA Theater Works. Lead funding for the Relativity Series is provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts in the modern world. Here's part 2 of Please Continue by Frank Basloe.
Ooh, how about that blonde in the pink over there, huh?
That girl in the corner there?
Please, don't do that, Jim.
What?
Don't point.
Sorry.
You should never point at a mixer, Sanders. It's a big no-no.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing her before.
Yeah, she must be new.
Could be.
Because I would definitely remember if I'd seen her before.
You think she's Jewish?
Why do you have to do that?
I thought you could only date Jews.
I have to marry a Jew. It's a marital obligation. There's nothing that says I can't dance at a mixer with a blonde co-ed of undetermined religious origin.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Hey, speaking of blondes, I saw one of your subjects on campus the other day.
Oh, yeah? Who was that?
The tall guy with the horn rims. You know, the one who kept tugging on his hair?
Oh, right.
He passed right by me in the library.
Did he?
Yeah, the guy pretended like he didn't know me from Adam.
Maybe he didn't recognize you.
Well, it wasn't like I was really looking to chat the guy up anyway. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ask that blonde in the pink to dance. What do you think, pal?
Go for it.
Yeah, you haven't seen her with anyone else here, have you?
Not that I noticed.
You know, that guy looked at me like he'd seen a ghost.
Well, after what he did to you, or thinks he did, I'm not surprised.
Well, so let me ask, what do you think you would do?
What do you mean?
What do I mean? I mean, the tables are turned, and you're the naive dolt walking into that room in the basement of Lindsley Chit. Does Jimmy Sanders flip the switches?
I don't know. I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought.
But you're telling me you sit there for hours watching these bums shock the piss out of me, or at least what they think is the piss out of me, and you never think about it?
No, I don't. Not really.
Huh. Me, personally, I contemplate it all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, and not just about what I would do, but what other people as well. I can't even look at people the same anymore. Even chicks. No, you know, I used to just wonder what a hen would look like naked. And now I can't help but ponder how many volts she'd give me as well.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence as to whether I prefer a girl who's obedient or disobedient. And speaking of which, next song, I'm asking that blonde in pink to dance. Just giving you a heads up, pal.
I appreciate it.
You ever think about just telling them, Jim,
Tell him.
that it's not real?
What?
After it's done, right before they walk out the door, you could just tell them the experiment wasn't real.
What would be the point?
Well, they're playing my song. That's my cue, Jimbo.
Hey, in that dumb bar over there talking like Miss Pink?
No. Oh, great. Isn't that just great?
That dumb bar just swooped right in there like a hawk, didn't he?
Son of a... My song playing, and here I am stuck in the corner with the pride of Kansas.
Well, maybe we can get her for the next dance.
What the hell are we doing, Sanders?
What do you mean?
I mean, did we really take a bus all the way from Boys Town to godforsaken Poughkeepsie to stand in a corner and yap? No, next song, we make our move on these Vassar girls. No ifs, ands, or buts. You with me?
Just better not be that 16 Reasons.
I happen to like that tune. What do you have, something against Connie Stevens?
She's okay on Hawaii and I, but that song just bugs the heck out of me.
Really? How come?
Well, for one, 16 just seems like an inordinate number of reasons to love someone.
I would settle for 3, personally.
Yeah?
Yeah. Boobs, bottom, and smile will do the trick for me. Speaking of which, who are we going for here anyway? Any prospects, pal?
How about those 2 birds over by the punch bowl?
Those gals at the trough are a bit of a step down from my blonde and pink, you must admit.
I don't think so.
But in the event Dunbar keeps my lady tied up, I suppose they could suffice in a pinch. So, look, I know I'm just a hired hand, and believe me, definitely appreciative of the chance to earn a few extra bucks. I gotta ask, am I the only one feeling uneasy about what we're doing in that basement?
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? Seriously? Does it really not bother you at all what we're doing to those fellas?
It's not like I'm standing there holding a gun to their heads.
You're just testing how far they'll go in punishing me, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and that wonderful professor of yours is just testing how far you'll go in punishing them.
Hey, wait a second. I am not punishing them.
You sure about that?
They can stop whenever they want.
Huh. But can you?
You're the one strapped down, not them.
No, but how about you? Can you stop, Jim?
What is that even supposed to mean?
What do you think it means? I know you get your kicks out of playing the role of grand experimenter.
The hell I do.
But you ask me, what goes on in that dungeon in Lindsley Chit is quickly turning into a pretty nasty piece of business. And it's taking you right down with it.
Okay, so if they all stopped at 150 volts, you'd have no problem. But because they don't, we're supposed to feel bad? Is that it? It's an experiment.
It's more than just an experiment, and you know it.
Look, you get paid, they get paid, I get a thesis, end of story.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that. Eventually, maybe you'll even come to believe it.
You got some nerve, you know that?
Well, sounds like this tune's winding down. I'm going for the one without glasses.
Yeah, I was going for the one without glasses.
Yeah, I called it first.
That's not fair.
Well, what, you want to flip a coin? Rock, paper, scissors? Or should I just shock you for it?
Okay, fine. I'll take the one with the glasses.
Now let's move now before the song starts. I need to dance.
I'm just jotting down some thoughts here for the sermon I'll deliver after our new president is elected.
Oh, I imagine that must be somewhat difficult to plan, not knowing which candidate will win.
Well, I've decided that regardless of whether it's Mr. Nixon or Mr. Kennedy, I will start off that Sunday with the reading in Matthew where Christ walks on the Sea of Galilee. I figure it can't hurt to set the bar a tad high for either of them.
I suppose not.
I'm glad you agree. So what is it I can do for you today, Ms. Hobson, is it?
Hobson. Yes, Margaret Hobson. I was hoping I could talk with you about my fiancé,
Your fiancé,
Francis Dunleavy.
Francis Dunleavy. You're engaged to Francis Dunleavy.
Yes, Reverend, I am. I take it he didn't mention me?
I beg your pardon?
I know he came to see you recently. He told me, Reverend. I don't think he had planned to tell me, but, well, circumstances forced his hand.
Look, Miss Hobson, before you go any further, I need to tell you that any conversation I may have had with Francis, those conversations were in confidence.
Your sermon Sunday was actually the catalyst. At one point you talked about a young man who had been involved with treating a girl wrongly. He had gotten away with this wrongdoing and hadn't thought much of it, but he soon came to realize that there are people and there are things in this world, and things are to be used, and people are to be loved, not things loved, and people used. I found it rather poignant when you said it, and I glanced out of the corner of my eye at Francis to see what his reaction was, and there were tears. And Francis, he's generally not one to show his emotions. It was the first time I'd seen him like that. It wasn't until later on at lunch that he confessed to me that it was actually himself that you were talking about.
I was sure that must have come as quite a shock to you.
Yes, it did.
Look, Miss Hobson, having already counseled your fiancé, I don't think this is a conversation I can responsibly have with you.
I took a bus in from Northampton this morning just to see you, Reverend Coffin. As you can imagine, given my, this darned leg brace, it's not a particularly easy trip for me.
I certainly appreciate the lengths you went to get here, but you must understand, Francis came to me in the strictest confidence.
With all due respect, Reverend Coffin, you betrayed Francis's confidence the moment you went and used his troubles as fodder for a sermon.
I spoke of him anonymously as I sometimes do with students I've counseled.
Well, clearly not anonymously enough.
I am sincerely sorry that you had to find out all of this the way that you did. It is truly regrettable, and it was hardly my intention.
He was never a churchgoer, and then suddenly he was, and I honestly thought he was doing it for me. Well, it made me feel closer to him. We would walk there together, walk home, have lunch. I know his reasons for going shouldn't matter. I must sound absurd being upset by something like that.
No, you don't.
Why didn't he tell you about me? You were surprised just now when I told you I was his fiancé. He didn't mention me when you met, did he? Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Don't you find it curious that he wouldn't mention me, that he wouldn't mention his own fiancé?
I imagine for Francis it was difficult to acknowledge that he had wronged you as well. He had to first face what he had done to her before he could begin to confront the grievous harm he had done to you.
I took it off this morning. I took off my ring before I came. I took it off. Just to see what it would feel like to be without. And I promised myself I would make a decision by the time I returned to Northampton tonight. I want so very badly to believe that what happened was just a small indiscretion, a moment of weakness, if you will. But she's 14 years old.
Yes.
She's just a child, and I think of her, this child, and what she's been through. I just can't understand how he could be involved with something like that. And then I wonder if maybe it was all intentional.
What do you mean?
Well, if perhaps he wants me to leave him. If he's tired of being with someone like me, a cripple.
No.
Even if not consciously.
I'm sure that's not the case.
The truth is, we've never been intimate. He's never seen me unclothed. I insisted we wait. I insisted. Maybe I drove him to it.
You mustn't think that, Margaret.
I don't want to. But you must understand, I never dreamed I would be with a boy like Francis. You see, it was made very, very clear to me that finding a husband for someone like me, well, that was hardly something which I could count on. My first 2 years at Smith, I avoided mixers and dances entirely. I was already 15 the summer when I became sick, so I had some sense of what it was to dance with a boy when able-bodied. It made it rather difficult for me to imagine doing so like this. My friend finally convinced me to go along to a mixer early in my junior year. And so I went, and I stood in the corner, hoping some boy would look beyond this. It would have been bad enough if they had just ignored me entirely, but the looks of pity. But Francis... Francis was different. He was so different. I know this will sound ridiculous, but I knew it the moment he first looked at me. I think that's part of what makes this so difficult. He is better than those other boys. He's better. He's more decent. I know he is. Or at least I thought I did. I just cannot comprehend how the same boy, who has been so incredibly, incredibly kind to me, how he could be a part of something so awful. He is not the man I agreed to marry.
I think he is, Margaret.
No, he's not. The man who gave me that ring would not. He just wouldn't. I know I shouldn't say this, but I honestly wish he'd never told me.
He had to tell you.
Well, he could have spared me this. What purpose does my knowing possibly serve?
The only real sin is the denial of it. For Francis to finally let go of that denial he'd been carrying, he needed for you to know. When Francis first came here to see me, I had just spoken that Sunday of the scene in Calvary with the two thieves on the cross with Christ. Francis was particularly concerned about the fate of the second thief, the one who does not cry out for Christ to remember me. I thought he was trying to justify his sense of being that second thief, that he was living with a hardened heart and an indifference to his sin. That first time we met, Francis was unable to even tell me what he had done. But then he came back here, and so I challenged him to confront his actions, to engage with what he had done, and I could not allow him to take the easy way out. You may feel that Francis Dunleavy is not the man you agreed to marry, but for what it's worth, it seems to me that the grappling sinner you are with now is likely to be a far more decent man than the indifferent sinner you could have ended up with. And I think, deep down, you know that.
When it first came out in the papers, it was all anyone could talk about. A young girl and all those boys. Such a terrible, terrible scandal. And I remember the first visit I made to campus after. I took the bus in from Northampton on a Friday. It was a lovely, quiet, late summer day, and Francis and I strolled around the campus. And I looked at the boys differently. I watched them passing by, and I just saw wolves. All around the campus, all I saw were these wolves. And I clung tight to Francis's arm, thinking to myself that there were two things I knew for certain. That Francis Dunleavy was the boy I would marry, and that he was not a wolf.
Sanders, I'll tell you what was particularly surprising to me watching here this time around. The tension. The face rubbing, the way they pull on their own hair even.
And the way they laugh.
Yes.
The laughing really surprised me, Mr. Milgram.
The laughter is fascinating. I don't quite know what to make of it, frankly. It's almost as if they laugh because they can't actually believe what they're doing.
It sometimes feels like they're laughing to keep from crying. One of them last week did actually cry.
Actual tear shed?
Yes, but he still kept on. He just kept going. I honestly can't believe what I'm watching sometimes. Saul is in there hollering, pleading to be let out, and I'm pushing them to continue, and they resist, but still they just keep going.
You know, I actually had concerns that they wouldn't buy the conditions.
How so?
I thought this fake shock machine I had constructed was perhaps too crude-looking a device to be convincing. I also worried that maybe the screaming would be too macabre. It's rather difficult to keep it all consistent as well. I think in the future I would have it tape-recorded and played back by the learner. Also, from what I've seen so far, to truly test the limits, the machine may need to go higher than 360 volts. Regardless, from what I've seen so far, they definitely seem to believe it's all rather real, don't they?
Yes, they do.
You know, I told a colleague about what we've been finding, and he said he was not surprised at all. Claims you Yale men are such a cutthroat, ambitious lot, you would shock your own mothers if it came down to that. Anyway, I'll be curious to hear how it goes with the last couple of groups you run through, Sanders.
There is something I've been thinking about. If you have a moment?
Of course. What is it?
I was just wondering if you ever feel...
Feel what?
Uncomfortable about all the what's the right word? Deception?
Deception?
We're bringing these fellas in under the guise or pretext of one thing and then having the experiment be about something else altogether.
That's actually pretty standard for psychological inquiry.
I understand.
Look, Sanders, you're no longer toiling with the lab rats. You are working with Homo sapiens now, of the Ivy League variety.
I know that.
As such, you are dealing with a slightly more intelligent life form. So, in order to elicit natural responses, confederates, or deception, as you call it, are commonly used. The bottom line, it's a little difficult to test someone's obedience if they are aware that their obedience is being tested. That's the uncomfortable part of this work. Look, I told you from the get-go that the use of deception will be a necessary aspect of this. I was upfront about that.
Saul had made a suggestion that I just tell them at the end that it's not real. Once they're finished, of course.
So, we tell them that the experiment isn't real?
I could tell them at the end, after they've finished.
I see.
That way it won't have any effect on the results, but at least then they'll know when they leave.
Okay, and what about the subject pool?
What do you mean?
What do you think I mean, Sanders? I mean, do you want the entire Yale campus to be aware of what's actually going on down here in this basement?
No.
To completely pollute the subject pool?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, if you start telling people, that's exactly what's going to happen. They will tell others.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
They will, James! You know they will. Some will be too ashamed of what they've done, but some will talk. And once word gets around about the true nature of what is going on in here, the entire project will be put in jeopardy. I can't do this project on this campus in the future if people know what's going on in here. Look, this kind of project, it requires discretion.
I understand that.
I was very clear about that. I was clear with you from the start. And this is just the pilot phase. This is just the very beginning of my work.
It's just some of them look so upset when they leave. It's begun to feel like we're just using them.
Using them?
Yes.
I want to ask you something, and I would like you to answer me honestly.
Okay.
Do you actually believe in this experiment? Do you believe in it?
I do.
Do you think what we're doing in here is real? That it has real significance?
I think it's extraordinary. Truly, it just
what?
It just makes me uncomfortable at times.
Okay, well, at this point, the data on the 12 subjects you've run is obviously far too slim to be even remotely conclusive, but probably enough of a sample to help support my grant applications. It looks like I may be running the experiment with this seminar I'm teaching as well, so hopefully I'll have that pilot data to include too. Anyway, why don't you begin writing up your thesis and we'll call it good.
What? Hold on.
You've
Wait
done
a
some
second.
solid work thus far.
It was just a concern.
You won't be penalized in the grading, I can assure you of that.
I was just expressing a concern. That's all I was doing.
It sounded like more than just a concern to me.
Look, I am sorry if I was out of line saying what I did.
I need someone who is committed to this work.
I am committed.
If you're as uncomfortable as you say, I think it best we wrap this up.
What?
Look, I am giving you an easy out here, Sanders. Take it.
I don't want an out.
I'm sure you must have other things you want to do with your time.
I don't want an out.
Your medical school applications must be due
I want to
soon.
finish this
You must be
project.
up to your eyeballs with
I want
that.
to finish, sir. Please. Please, let me finish. Let me finish what I started here. Please.
So while I'm in one of the Met Galleries looking at some painting, these two fancy East Side ladies come up to me. They see me standing there in my uniform, and they ask me if I can kindly tell them where the Van Gogh paintings are located.
What did you tell them?
I very kindly told them that I hear they have some very lovely Van Gogh paintings in Amsterdam.
Mitch, you didn't.
You should have seen their faces. Oh. You know, I have company members that would have taken tremendous offense to having this uniform confused with that worn by a museum guard at the Met. But me, I'm just a soldier in basic on his first weekend leave in the city trying to have some fun. Speaking of which, Francis, I have a date.
You have a date?
My cousin, who's over at Columbia, is fixing me up with a Barnard girl. I just need to figure out where I'm going to take her to dinner. So, do you think it would be incredibly tacky if I take her to Tad's?
For the $9 steak dinner?
Just a little short on cash right now. My folks have basically cut me off while I'm down at Fort Dix.
I could give you a few bucks if you like.
Yeah?
Sure. Here,
You sure about this?
take it.
Well, on behalf of myself and my date, I thank you. Hey, let's sit down for a minute.
Okay.
So what are you doing in the city?
I came down to visit Margaret at her sister's. She lives a few blocks east of here.
Yeah, you two working on wedding plans?
The wedding's not happening.
What do you mean?
We're calling it off. I came down here so we could finalize things.
You're calling it off? Why?
Let's just say I think she deserves better.
No offense, Francis. I just think marrying you, she would have done pretty well for herself, considering.
What does that mean?
Don't get me wrong, Margaret's a nice enough girl. I'm just saying, given her particular limitations.
Wow, that's a low blow, Mitch.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend.
Take it back.
What?
I want you to take it back.
Come on, Francis. Don't be ridiculous.
Take it back. Take back what you just said.
Fine. I take it back. Jesus. What the hell is going on with you?
We shouldn't have been there, Mitch. We should never have been there.
And that girl? She shouldn't have been there either. But she was.
There was something wrong with her, Mitch.
No one forced her to come to our goddamn college.
There was something really wrong with her, and you know it.
She still shouldn't have been there, doing what she was doing.
Do not put it on her. She was just a kid, for God's sake.
A kid who had no business being at a Yale residential college.
That's how you justify it. Make it all her fault.
What the hell are you doing?
You talk like there are no consequences, Mitch, but there are. There are consequences.
I'm in the goddamn army instead of Yale. I know there are consequences. I'm well aware that there are consequences. Do not talk to me about fucking consequences, Francis.
You're getting your military commitment out of the way so you don't have to worry about being drafted. So don't even pretend that you're making some big sacrifice here.
We've been friends since our freshman year at Andover, Francis. Do you really want to let this girl and this stupid crap get in the way of that? Look, I feel shitty about this whole thing, too. I do. I feel like shit. But it's done, pal.
It is not done.
Francis, it's time to move on.
I went to see her. I went up to her house in Hampton.
Why?
She was gone. Her parents sent her away. She's in a fucking institution, Mitch. All you guys who got kicked out, you guys are all going to end up being Yale graduates, aren't you? I mean, you know they'll let every last one of you come back. You'll get your Yale diplomas and go off in the world. And maybe, years from now when you've had one cocktail too many and your wife is off in the powder room, you'll run into Sperry or one of the other guys and you'll shoot the breeze about Yale days gone by. And have a good laugh about that crazy 14-year-old tart that sucked you all off years ago at Calhoun College. But that family, that girl, their lives got wrecked, Mitch. We wrecked their lives.
You mind if I take a seat, Harold?
It's a free country.
You waiting for your date, too?
Yeah, I am.
So, what are you all doing tonight?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
I don't know, Jim. Dinner? A movie, perhaps?
We're seeing a play, actually. Sheila, my date, she said she enjoys the theater a whole lot. So, I got us tickets to The Deadly Game over at the Schubert. You know, I heard recently that William Howard Taft actually had an office here. Had you heard that?
No, I had not.
He was a professor in the law school after he left the White House, and they gave him an office here at the hotel. From the Oval Office to a room at the Taft Hotel. Something, huh?
That is something.
Where you going?
To sit over there?
Oh.
What do you think? You can still boss me around, pal?
No, I'm not trying to boss you around.
If I want to go and sit over there, I'll go and sit over there.
Look, I just wanted to talk.
Yeah? Well, I'm actually not particularly interested.
I see.
Truthfully, I didn't much care for that little experiment of yours.
Didn't?
No, I did not. I'm not really sure what the hell it was all supposed to be about anyway. Given how many answers that dope kept getting wrong, it certainly didn't demonstrate that punishment helps in learning.
Look, if I were to tell you something, would you promise not to spread it around?
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
It wasn't what it seemed to be.
I'm not interested. Just leave me alone, will ya? I mean it.
The guy who was in the other room, he was not really being shot.
I saw him get strapped in. I saw it with my own eyes. You put all of those electrodes on him.
He was part of the experiment.
He was making a whole lot of
He
noise.
was just pretending.
Pretending?
The machine doesn't even work. It was all an act.
An act?
Yes.
So what? The whole time he just faked yelling his head off like that?
Pretty much.
He faked it? Why would he? I don't believe this. So then the point all along was what? What was the point? To just get me to keep on shocking the guy?
Well, to measure how far you would go, really.
I see. And why are you telling me all of this now?
Why?
Yeah, why? Why? I mean, it's Saturday night, for Pete's sake. Why did you feel so compelled to come over and share this news with me?
I guess I just wanted to...
You just what? What?
I just didn't want you thinking that the other guy had been hurt in any way.
Well, it's a little late for that, don't you think?
I was also just kind of hoping that maybe you could explain to me why you didn't stop.
I was just doing what you told me to do. I was just following the ridiculous instructions you gave me.
But the guy you were shocking, that guy was hollering to be let out.
But according to you, he wasn't even being shocked.
For all you knew, though, he was in pain.
But he wasn't in pain, was he?
Look, you should know you were not the only one who didn't stop.
I don't really care. I don't care about any of this. You ask me, it was a sick experiment. So what do you say you just go back over there? Go back over there. Sit down and leave me be. I mean it, pal.
Yeah.
I want you to leave me alone.
I just want to understand.
What is there to understand?
You could have stopped the experiment.
I don't want to talk about this anymore.
You could have stopped it.
I don't want to talk about this.
But you let me just keep pushing you, and I just want to know why. Why did you let me keep pushing you?
I don't know why, okay?
But he was screaming to be let out.
I told you already. I don't goddamn know. I don't know. I kept asking you if he was okay. I wanted to stop, all right? I did. My girl just came down. I gotta go. I don't have money like most of the guys here. I sell books in the library 20 hours a week, and when I see a sign for one of these stupid experiments, I sign up to make a few extra dollars so maybe I can take her someplace decent when she comes in to visit. I can't believe the whole thing was a frickin' hoax. I just wanted to make a couple bucks. You think it's right to use people like that? You think that's right?
There's a bunch of us standing there in this hallway, Reverend, and she's in one of the rooms. And one guy goes in, and a few minutes later he comes out. And another guy goes in, and he comes out. And on it goes. And I'm standing there, and I know what's happening is wrong, but then it's my turn. And they start chanting my name. Dunleavy, 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 pushing me to go in. And the next thing I know, I'm in that room, and she's sitting there on the bed, and she looks at me. And I can tell she's young, and she doesn't understand what she's doing. And I can hardly breathe. I'm so nervous. I can hardly breathe. I feel myself wanting to just walk out. I want to just turn around and leave that room. I want to leave. But I don't. I don't. I don't. I don't know who I am anymore. There's this person I wish I was, and the person I am. And I can't seem to reconcile the two. I keep wishing that I hadn't been there, or that I'd just walked away. And then I keep thinking about this editorial I saw in the school paper. The guy wrote, if just one student had intervened, the whole incident could have been avoided. And that's my real wish. Not that I wasn't there or walked away. My wish is that I had been that student.
Next time you will be. And I tell you that from experience, Francis. No crime has ever been committed of which I myself did not feel capable. Goethe said that. When I was your age, I was in the military over in Europe, just after the war had ended. I was a Russian translator in a camp in Plattling where there were 3,000 or so Russian soldiers who were suspected of being deserters. We were supposed to send any deserters back to Russia, and we knew that would mean by force, since in Stalin's Russia they would probably face imprisonment or death. They believed that we were there simply to gather information and help them. The American colonels in charge made a secret plan to surprise them, so before any of them could resist, they would be herded onto trains and forcibly taken to the Russian border. The night before this roundup, unaware of what was in store for them, the Russians put together a special show with singing, dancing, and poems to express their appreciation. They invited the American colonels in charge as honored guests, but the colonels sent me in their stead. I went as ordered, and I sat there in the front row of this packed hall as these Russians sang and danced and celebrated on my behalf, and I said nothing. I knew what awaited them the next morning, and I said nothing. The next day, when the troops stormed the camp and packed them onto boxcars, a number of the men tried to kill themselves rather than return to Russia. 2 of them rammed their heads through the windows in the barracks and sawed through their veins on the broken glass. I think back to the 21-year-old who was there in that camp. Still carry it with me. The guilt. The feeling of being complicit in something that I knew in my bones was wrong. That feeling has stayed with me. It informs who I am and what I do and what I don't do.
He's gone?
He's gone.
He really left, Jim?
Yeah, Saul. He left.
Wow. I guess after, 12 guys in a row, you kind of just expect them all to go through with it.
I know.
Why him? Why him?
I don't know. Oh, he left this for you. Tried to get him to take it, but he told me to give it to you.
I heard.
Little bonus, I guess.
I don't want it.
You don't want it?
No. Keep it.
You really don't want this money?
No, I don't.
Come on, take it.
How many times do I have to say it? I don't want the stupid money.
Well, it's not like you really deserve it anyway.
But what the hell is that supposed to mean?
I think you know what it means.
I'm afraid I don't, so why don't you tell me?
Look, you weren't consistent.
What?
Your responses, they were nowhere near as consistent as they were with the others.
Are you serious?
They weren't, and you know it.
Jesus Christ.
And it affects what they do. It affects
You
how
gotta
they deal
be
with
kidding
it.
me.
It has to be consistent like a recording. It has to be consistent.
I think I'm done here, Jim.
What do you mean you're done?
I don't know if it's seeing someone finally say enough, or you acting like a complete jackass, or a combination thereof, but I don't want to do this anymore.
So that's it?
Yeah, that's it. I quit.
You quit? You're quitting?
Yeah, now that I've seen just how compliant Yaleys really are, I figure I might as well spend the next few days convincing them to pull the lever for Kennedy next week.
You can't quit.
I'm done, Jim.
Well, what am I supposed to do with the next guy?
Give him the $2, I suppose.
And the fellows that are scheduled to come next week?
Well, either your professor will live with the results from these 13 victims, or you'll find someone else to sit in here and scream consistently for $1 an hour.
Look, I didn't mean to be so critical.
Personally, I think given what we've witnessed so far, that professor of yours should have absolutely no problem whatsoever in documenting that this insane situation of his works.
Come on, Saul. Don't do this.
Whether we're asked to shock someone, or scream, or run an experiment where people shock and scream, we basically just do as we're told, don't we?
You think I'm glad that they shocked you?
Quite honestly, I don't know what you think anymore, Jim.
You know, it bothers me too.
Oh, does it? Does it bother you?
Yes, it does.
All right, then. Tell me this. When that guy got up and walked out the door just now, were you pleased that he said no and stopped the experiment? Were you? Or, deep down, did you feel like you'd somehow failed?
Look, what goes on in here, it's ugly.
Don't get philosophical with me. Just answer the damn question.
It's ugly as hell. I know that.
You can't even answer me.
But it is also real.
Real? Real? You think this is real?
I think it shows us something that is absolutely real.
A shock machine that doesn't even goddamn work.
It shows us something. It shows us something. You can question the methodology, but you cannot deny that it shows us something.
Oh, and what exactly does it show us, Jim?
Who people really are.
Well, I think the only thing it shows us is who your professor wants them to be.
How can you say that?
Because it's true. This is what he wanted. This is what you wanted. It doesn't show us something real. It shows us what you can do when you manipulate people.
Can you honestly tell me that you came into this expecting that even one of these guys, one of them, would go all the way? That you would sit in there screaming, "Let me out of here," like your life depended on it, and they wouldn't stop?
No. You're right. I did not expect that.
This is what I'm saying.
And I also didn't expect that my good pal Jim Sanders would push a guy so far that he would actually cry. I was just in pretend hurt in here, but you pushed that guy to tears, Jim. The entire time, I'm listening to see if maybe you're going to stop it. Maybe you'll finally just say, enough is enough, and stop it. But you just kept on, just relentlessly pushing him. It's like you were torturing the poor guy. But you don't see it. You don't. I'm taking my stuff. You don't see what's happening here. I feel like I don't even know who you are anymore.
I told one of them. I told him what it was actually about. We were both sitting at the Taft, waiting for our dates. I should have just let the guy wait in peace, but I told him.
Why?
I think I just wanted him to feel better about what happened. To feel relief that he didn't actually hurt you.
And did he?
I don't know. I don't think I really gave him that chance.
What do you mean?
I guess I saw it as some kind of opening. Me showing him my cards. Now he should show me his, because before I know it, I'm pressing him. Asking him why he didn't stop.
What did he say?
What could he say? He was just doing what he was told and paid to do. I should have just left the poor guy alone. At the time, I think I just wanted to understand why. I was so desperate to understand why they don't stop. But now I don't think that was really it.
So, what do you think you were after?
Some sense that we were somehow different.
That you wouldn't do what he did?
I guess. Yeah.
I think you already have.
Francis doesn't trust me to carry hot beverages.
That's hardly the case.
Now, I will confess, Jim, I do find this coffee tray to be a bit of a struggle, but the way I see it, it's unlikely I'll ever be able to do it on my own if he doesn't allow me to try.
Well done, dear. You sit down and I'll pour. Jim?
Yes, thanks.
I've noticed in the week since the president was killed, we all seem to be reading the newspaper any chance we can get. I suppose it's one way of coping. Oh, thank you, dear. Myself, I've taken to baking as well. Anything you find yourself doing differently, Jim?
I did just start going to church.
So you weren't a regular at Battelle Chapel?
No, hardly. I felt the need that first Sunday after. For some reason, I've just kept going. Thanks, Francis. I thought that sermon he made that first Sunday after was rather remarkable.
Oh, it was.
It seems such a simple thing now, but at the time, hearing him tell us that our faith shouldn't be lost but strengthened, it was what I needed to hear.
So Francis tells me you're hoping to do your internship here at Yale as well.
No, it is very competitive, of course, so we'll see.
He tells me you're one of the stronger students in the entire medical school class.
I've done all right.
You've done more than all right, Jim.
I just want to say, I really appreciate your having me today. It's very rare I get a home-cooked meal these days.
Well, you'll have to join us after church again.
I'd like that.
Hey, did either of you see this article on the cover of the Yale Daily today? I saw something about it buried in the New York Times as well. Experiment warns of blind obedience. It's about an experiment this psychology professor conducted here. Listen to this. According to an article published in a recent scientific publication, a psychological experiment conducted at Yale reduced several normally poised Yale undergraduates to twitching, stuttering wrecks on the verge of nervous collapse. But in the process, they proved themselves quite willing to blindly obey instructions requiring them to inflict supposedly near-fatal electric shocks on others. 43 Yale undergraduates were used as subjects for the pilot experiments, investigating obedience to authority by Stanley Milgram, now assistant professor of psychology at Harvard. From November 1960 until June 1962, over 1,000 men in all walks of life were given the opportunity to inflict extreme punishment on others at the request of an experimenter. Before the experiments began, Mr. Milgram and his colleagues estimated that only 3% of those tested would allow themselves to flip the maximum punishment switches, supposedly sending over 300 volts of electricity into another man's body. Actually, 65% of the subjects flipped all the switches. Mr. Milgram told the news yesterday that he was very surprised at the results of his experiment. Whatever force kept my subjects obeying, the young social psychologist said, was obviously more powerful than their moral scruples. Had you heard anything about this, Jim? I'm frankly kind of astonished the university would allow an experiment of this nature to go on here.
They call it action conformity.
What?
Action conformity. It's when you try and get someone to conform by taking action.
Is that right?
A lot of the conformity experiments that have been done involve verbal acquiescence.
Verbal acquiescence?
Saying something you don't believe because someone else says it. For example, Francis's tie is red. You know full well it's a red tie. But because Francis and I say the tie is blue, you therefore conform and say it's blue as well.
Yeah, but we're talking about electrical shocks here, not wrong answers.
It's all a form of conformity testing. Whether it be giving wrong answers or actually shocking someone, you're still being pressured to go against what you believe.
I thought you were a chemistry major, Jim.
I was.
You seem to know an awful lot about psychology.
He was my thesis advisor.
What?
I did my senior honors thesis with him. He was the advisor I was assigned, and that was the project we worked on.
So you were involved with this
The
experiment?
pilot experiments, where he used undergraduates. I helped with that for a brief time.
The article said this fellow Milgram found the results surprising. Do you find them surprising, Jim?
Truthfully, from what I saw, I thought the percentage would have been higher than 65.
Higher? Really? That seems like a pretty pessimistic view.
I don't know. Perhaps it is.
I think it sounds pretty realistic, actually.
What makes you say that?
The they who know not what they do is us.
That's from the sermon today.
Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. It's supposed to be about the forgiveness of sin, right? But what if it's really just a kind of admission? An acceptance of our nature? What was that line Coffin closed with today?
We know not what we do because we know not who we are.
I think he's right. We don't really know ourselves.
You've just heard Please Continue by Frank Basloe, directed by Rosalind Ayres, Susan Albert Loewenberg producing director. Starring, in alphabetical order, Lynne Barr as Margaret Hobson, Will Brittain as James Sanders, Jake Green as Saul Dashoff, Taj Jegaraj as Harold Burden, Rob Morrow as the Reverend William Sloan Coffin Jr., James Scully as Mitchell Halverson III, Mark Jude Sullivan as Francis Dunleavy, and Matthew Wolfe as Dr. Stanley Milgram. Associate Artistic Director Annalise Erickson. Mixed by Mark Holden for the Invisible Studios, West Hollywood. Foley Artist Jeff Gardner. Script Supervisor Nikki Hyde. Recording Engineer, Editor, and Sound Designer Eric Cifuentes. And next time on the Relativity Series, when you think of the discovery of DNA, you think of Watson and Crick. But who took the first photo of the iconic double helix?
Gosling, more to the left. Oh, I said the left.
I am moving it to the left.
More. You have to move it more. We're simply not aligned.
Don't step into the light, Miss Franklin, please.
Damn it!
You can't move through the beam like that.
If I have to do everything myself, I will. I mean, don't you understand? I will literally go mad if we don't get a better image soon. So let's get it done, Gosling. It's as simple as that.
Doesn't have to be.
What was that?
I said I'm here to help you. I just don't want to...
What, Gosling? Just don't want to what?
I was going to say endanger myself, but I didn't. I could have said put myself in harm's way. Could have said that even though we didn't know for sure yet. I could feel the way that beam cut through my flesh. Instead, I said to her, yesterday's photographs were better. The best yet. Did you see them?
Of course I did.
There was a little crowd around them this morning, marvelling at them, at the detail you captured.
Was there?
Absolutely. They were enthralled. It's quite gratifying, really. You should feel...
It's going to get to the heart of everything, Ray.
But you still need to sleep occasionally, don't you? Or don't you need any?
We can call it a night if you like.
You mean, or why don't I call it a night?
They were really enthralled, were they?
Like chickens clucking around a new bit of food.
Go home, Ray.
So long as you promise not to...
What?
Stay too late. So long as you promise not to stay too late.
Oh, I promise.
You're lying.
Yes.
The story of Rosalind Franklin in Photograph 51 by Anna Ziegler. Next time on the Relativity Series. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss a thing. And find out about what we do at LA Theatre Works on our website at latw.org or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Ron Lipkin. Thanks so much for joining us. The Relativity Series is produced by LA Theatre Works. Lead funding for the Relativity Series is provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, bridging science and the arts in the modern world.